You currently are doing risk management for a 50,000 square foot warehouse. The owner of the warehouse consults with you about the best insurance coverage available in case the warehouse is damaged. What is he doing in regards to risk? Transporting, transferring, avoidance, mitigation. So when we talk about risk, there's a couple different ways that we can actually deal with it. We can mitigate a risk, we can transfer a risk, or we can absolutely avoid a risk. Now, to avoid me busting my chin open, I'm gonna stop and explain what the hell I'm talking about. When it comes to risk in cybersecurity and just in general, there's a couple different ways to deal with it. Now, there's some risks that you cannot avoid. Thunderstorms, earthquakes. If you live somewhere that has those type of things going on, you wouldn't be able to avoid those things. So you can mitigate certain things by lowering your risk. So mitigation, simply put, is just trying to lower your risk. And mitigation also includes trying to reduce the impact of whatever that risk is. And last but not least is transferring the risk. So in this scenario, that's what happened. The risk got transferred. So with insurance, you transfer the risk. Hold on, listen to the birds. Can you hear them? I'm up early, man. I'm up early doing this for y'all. But anyway, transferring the risk takes the burden off of you and puts it onto a third party. If you have car insurance, right, which I hope you do, you are transferring the risk from yourself in case you get into an accident, in case somebody runs into you. You're transferring the risk to the insurance company. So if something happens, the insurance company would be responsible for that risk. So just understand, in IT and on the actual exam, risk management is super important. Risk management is also important in your everyday life. So these skills and the stuff that we're learning inside this actual program, inside this course that you're looking at right now, and inside the actual Security Plus exam can actually be transferred to your real life, right? Risk transference, risk mitigation, and risk avoidance. You need to really hone in on those three things for the exam and for your actual life. So let's dive a little bit deeper into risk and risk management. So risk management usually has a few different steps. So the first thing you're gonna do is identify the risk. So you actually need to know what the risk is. You know what the risk is. So you can do that as an individual or you can do that in a team setting, but you need to identify what the risk actually is. Then after that, you need to analyze the risk. So you got to have risk analysis. So basically, when you analyze on the risk, you're determining the likelihood that the risk will actually occur, whether it's on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 to 100, A to E. You need to just figure out what's the likelihood of that risk actually happening. Then after that, you need to prioritize the different risks. So not all risks were created equal or have the same level of severity. So you need to prioritize the risks to see which ones are most important, which ones are most threatening. After that, you need to assign personnel or persons to each risk. So each risk should have an owner. Each risk should have somebody that is directly responsible for that risk. So if you identify and you prioritize, but you don't have somebody dedicated to the actual risk, it's kind of going to mess you up. It's going to be kind of useless, right? So if you're the project manager, whoever you are, everybody should have a risk that they are obligated to be responsible for. After you've done all that stuff, it's the risk response. So how do we actually respond to the risk? So the project manager or whoever is in charge of everything is probably going to deal with the risk owner in order to decide together as a team what strategy to implement to resolve the risk. So you've done everything, identified it, analyzed it, got the owner, prioritized it. Now you actually say, okay, when this happens, this is how you respond to it. Last but not least is monitoring the risk. Right? So monitoring the risk to see, has anything changed? Do we need to change our approach? So on and so forth. So whoever the risk owner is going to be primarily responsible for monitoring that risk. Jerry compiled code for a proprietary software. You provide lots of invalid or random inputs into the software. You're trying to cause crashes, errors, or memory leaks. What type of tests are you performing? Smurf, penetration quiz, fuzzing, linger.